We arrived in France, we cycled France, we ate in France, we saw France, we ended up at a haunted French train station. An excellent start to the big bike adventure, so let's move through a bit of Brittany. So we're here, at the very top, well, kind of the very top of France, just south of Rostov, which we toured in the last show. The end goal for this section will be a place called Nantes, but that's way down here, so we need to get moving. And moving we did, just this beautiful, canopied, evergreen old train line done by the third Napoleon, I believe. But flat and quiet and sun and just absolute bliss. It is so unbelievably gorgeous, this old Napoleonic train line that they converted into a bike path. It leads us to the water. Some friendly locals point me in the right direction, and we're officially on the Canal de Brest. Nothing but bike path and the occasional outpost with bike fixing gear, which was appreciated. We ended up that evening at some municipal building where we put up our tent, and another excellent day. The next day, more lonely canal, which was nice, but we also needed bread. We're in France, for God's sakes. So we duck into the tiny town of Gorac. Quaint and quiet, but nothing seemed to be open, including the baker. A baguette emergency so soon into our adventure wasn't good, and I began to panic. Fortunately, the baker had planned for this by installing a fresh baguette vending machine, and say what you will about the French, they're still the ones who did this. Speaking of the French, if you're looking to impress, riding around with this scene on your bicycle seems to do the trick. More canal, more gorgeous old ruins, more roadside attractions, and we managed to find a municipal campsite for €5, which look, even we can afford. A quick dinner brought to you by cheap ramen, and the only spice I never travel without, and I'm absolutely open to a sponsorship from, Tony Chachere's. And with that, we call it a night. Next morning, Sunday morning, and just about as lazy a ride as you can get. It's just a dreamy, sleepy, cloudy Sunday, cycling to Canal. But then, seemingly out of nowhere, we round a corner and find ourselves face to face with our very first chateau. Say it with me, yay, chateaus in France. Chateaus, castillos, castles, call it what you will, one of the biggest catalysts for our travels. Back onto the canal, where the daily stranger takes photos of our wine holder and then insists that I pose in front of my bicycle with my wine holder. And then we even detour into these beautiful fields of gold not too far away from the canal. Speaking of the canal, we're back on it. More canal lockhouses, which we'll get into. More tiny towns with nice French scenes, more scenes from the canal itself, more towns, more scenes, and once again, back on the canal. But the weather began to turn dark and cold, so I decided to dip into the coffers for a cheap room. I needed Wi-Fi to get everything backed up and to start editing this show, only to find that the claim of Wi-Fi was non-existent. I didn't even have a phone signal. And while that might sound like something silly or even immature to feel blue about, it hit me out of nowhere. So just been in a funk about money. I do need to withdraw cash today and then look at money just to kind of see what's going on. It's an easy way to ride when you're setting off and everybody's excited, but the reality is there really isn't much money. I don't want to sit here and say depression. I know people who suffer from that, but I also don't want to not say it. Situational depression apparently is a thing, and that could be it. It comes and it goes from time to time, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I decided just to try to sleep, which I wasn't very successful at, just my head going back and forth to that same old demon, money. That next morning, determined to force myself out of it, I gave Miles a bath. I packed up a beautiful day with sun and blue and green and everything you'd want. Headed into a town I had already researched and I knew was going to be stunning, a place called Jocelyn. And my research was true, a drop-dead gorgeous castle welcoming while at the same time menacing, just kind of bearing down on anyone who dared walk, or in my case, ride by it. But Jocelyn itself is just one of those towns that truly makes you feel as if you're traveling. And I know that sounds funny or even trite, but only a handful of tourists around, most of them French, and just these unspoiled scenes that take you back to the 11th century, where it all began here, this flamboyant architecture, they claim. Those wonderful old half-timber houses, which really add to that time-traveled vibe I mentioned. But it was time to go, so off we went. And I decided the day was so nice, I was feeling so good, it was time we stopped for a break And I took a deep breath and I opened my banking app. But it's time we look at money. It's time we figure out the next couple of months. So here we go. Now, if you're one of the very kind Patreon subscribers, you've already been privy. Okay, maybe not privy, but you've already seen and continue to see my money situation. And while I won't get into it much here, I can tell you that there's no secret pile of cash I have to fall back on. At the time of recording, I have exactly $1,384. That's it. That's everything. The only recurring thing coming in is the $300 a month from Patreon. The dream here is to get that up to around 1,000 to be able to eat and travel from the little things I produce. So if you do have the heart for it, click the link in the bio or here on Instagram. It's $10 a month. It gets you all the real-time, behind-the-scenes, unedited looks at, traveling for the world for the past 26 years. And it helps me along the way, and it helps shows like this continue. But that was okay. The money was okay. We can live on $34 a day, even less, and perhaps even make money doing some personal shopping in Morocco soon. About 20 minutes down the road later, I came upon one of those lock keepers' homes. I got to watch a boat kind of come in, and I don't even know what it's called, level up, or when the water comes. I don't know, just Google it. But then, as if today couldn't get any better, the lock keeper waved and asked me if I wanted to help. And did I want to help the lock keeper? I absolutely did, cranking and sweating and singing sea shanties in my head as I wheeled them through, probably saving their lives, to be honest. Was in such a good mood after that even though I arrived in a cute little village around 4 p.m., we hopped off the bike in a town called Montereau-Relot, I believe it's pronounced. I felt good about this decision. But as I was walking around, I saw these strange yet cute little hut things. Didn't quite know what they were, so I had a look around, and then I asked the bartender in town about them. And then she called someone on city council who met me and unlocked them, and who I paid a grand sum of €11 for. And just look at this. Such a fantastic idea. The bike goes down below, as well as plenty of room for storage, a covered table and chairs, and quite a bit of space for sleeping. Ate some horrendous pre-made lentils, made my bed, went outside to smoke a cigarette and see the stars, and I slept peacefully, which was needed. The next morning, back on the canal, back on the bike, making our way slowly to Nantes. We popped into the charming town of Malstroit to look around, more of that half-timbered, colorful, medieval, yesterday feel that we've come to love. And then we hopped back onto the route. But then, out of nowhere, disaster. So 4 fucking Dutch just ran into me, crashed the bike, threw me into the ditch. Still a little bit in shock. I'm still going over the bike to see if it's okay. What would happen then leads to the unbelievable, with them threatening me, even one of them attacking me with tire irons. I'm still too much in shock, and this is days later, to explain it. But I will, I absolutely will. I just need to remove all the emotion first. I cycled on, found myself in a strange yet inviting and kind of appreciated hippie-like commune, lockboxes for bikes, covered cooking spots, a very dramatic toilet. 2 other cyclists would join, one very friendly anarchist activist, and another one who claimed he had no identity and was being chased by the CIA after being experimented on with something called MK Ultra. Of course, he would end up putting his tent next to mine and talk to himself all night. So not a lot of sleep for us on an already rough day. The following morning, I was still shaken up, not to mention operating on a little bit of sleep, so I just pedaled and pedaled without much documentation, found a campsite, found food, slept. But the next morning, as this trip and travel seems to do, a shift in attitude with yet another chateau greeting us, this one in the town of Blaine. I didn't learn anything about this one, and that was intentional. After the day I had yesterday, I just sat there and stared, taking silly photos with the bike and just enjoying being in the shadow of one of the things that, like I said, inspired me. Down the road we went, but then to that terrible turn, the one that meant we had to leave the canal and into the city. I'm a little bit sad, to be honest. It might sound boring, 4 days of just cycling down a canal, but it was amazing. Onto the concrete roads, we reluctantly pedaled with the traffic of Nantes slowly introducing its rude self to us, a reminder of how fortunate we were. And fortunate for many reasons, especially with being able to take time with the little things, like those old lock keepers' homes. Just so pretty and precious, and any photographer would do very well to document the entire canal's worth. Some of them twee, some abandoned, some turned into cafes or even bars, some lived in an absolutely wonderful kind of sub-enjoyment of the trip, I guess you could say. But we were fortunate in another way, of being reminded of the hardest part of traveling by bike. The most tiring thing is the packing and repacking every single day, putting the tent up, putting the tent down, taking out all my shit, packing back all my shit the next morning. That's the, it's not the cycling, it's not the new town every day, it's the upkeep. But a small price to pay for being able to cycle around France. Back to the final day, though. We find a big campsite 20 minutes from the city of Nantes where we slept. A stressful day ahead of us tomorrow. But we woke up on the Loire, which was exciting and one of my favorite bike routes from years past, and a bike route we'll still get onto. And into Nantes, through the city for a quick look around, some nice scenes and places that would be nice to visit if we weren't on the bike, but we were. So we headed to the train station where we hoped yesterday's nationwide strike, surprise, surprise, wasn't affecting the lines today. Fortunately, they weren't. So we annoyed everyone by getting miles into a train compartment, and 2 hours later, Paris. We just arrived to Paris on a gorgeous Friday afternoon. It's about 80 degrees. And off we went. Beautiful, yes, as mentioned, but cycling an overloaded bike through perhaps the world's most visited city, it wasn't going to be easy. The hardest part, not the traffic, it wasn't not looking around at every cinematic corner or taking photos of every cinematic corner or stopping in every said corner for a coffee or something stronger. But we needed to get to the 11th arrondissement, kind of northeast of the center, where our friends Melindy and Tina had so kindly offered us a space. We finally arrived, safely at that, squeezed the bike into the tiny apartment, showered for an hour, and out we went for a quiet beer at my favorite cafe in all of Paris, and just being able to enjoy being back in the city I love so much. But Paris, we'll get into that on the next show. This one was already too long. So if you made it all the way through the end, besos.